Sometimes it feels like you can't get a lot of watch for $500 these days, and if you do from one of the bigger companies, you're often left with a long list of compromises. But this is where microbrands shine. These scrappy little startups are lean, they keep marketing costs down, and even more impressive is that they don't hold back, and decisions aren't made by committee. So today, I've chosen 4 microbrand watches: a dress watch, a field watch, a diver, and a chronograph. And the amazing thing is you can get this entire collection for less than $2,000, which is the price of like one mid-tier Swiss watch. Hey guys, I'm Max and this is Watch Crunch. Are you looking for an online discussion platform that feels like the bar from Cheers? Well, then check out watchcrunch.com, your friendly online pub for watch discussions. And if you don't get that reference, then I guess I'm old. Okay, so we got a great group of watches to get through. I'll talk about each one and then give it a crunch score. I've decided that microbrands should get just a standard 5 out of 10 on the history category, unless they're real standouts, in which case they might earn a 6, but that's always gonna be the one category they struggle with, sort of by definition. So first up is the Laurier Falcon, and specifically the 3rd rendition of this little field watch that could, from founders and couple Lorenzo and Lauren from New York. Great people. This watch really took my breath away unexpectedly last year at Wind Up Watch Fair. At 36 millimeters wide and 11 millimeters thin, it's, in my opinion, the best Explore alternative for your money. But unlike a straight up homage watch, the Falcon has its own touches that set it apart. First, you'll find a waffle pattern adoring the dial. And if you are a Rolex history buff, you'll immediately recall, like in the early 50s, there were a few years when the Explorer came on a waffle dial. Those watches are extremely rare and coveted today. Next, the hour hand is a broad arrow, and if you've seen my Speedmaster videos, you'll know my undying love for this hand shape. The Falcon uses a Miyota 9000 series movement that gets the job done, but more importantly, it keeps this case thin, especially compared to the NH Seiko movements that Laurier used in their first generation watches. Other things to love about the Falcon is its superb finishing on the case. I mean, check out this long polished bevel running down the sides. It has a large crown that is a pleasure to grip, and a domed acrylic crystal that finishes off that vintage vibe. The bracelet, it gets the job done, has a nice taper, milled clasp, but it's pretty standard microbrand affair, honestly. I found myself wearing it more on this leather NATO from 2-stitch straps. So let's give the Falcon a crunch score. And like I said, I think Laurier earns an extra point on history just because they've been around for a few extra years. They've sort of stayed in the conversation in the enthusiast community with their many models compared to some of the other brands I'll mention. Next up is the dressiest of the bunch. This is the Maine Brooklyn Triple Calendar. I saw this watch on the wrist of founder Jules, and I knew right away that it was gonna be a winner. The funny thing is, I thought he was wearing a Datejust for a second. I mean, this watch has 5-digit Datejust DNA written all over it. Dimensions are again 36 by 11. Don't you love all these smaller watches? But this one has a slightly longer lug to lug of 46, very Rolex-like. And unlike a Datejust, we have subdials, but it's not a chronograph. At the 3 o'clock, we get the month indicator. It's operated by a hidden pusher on the side of the case. At the 9, we get the day indicator, and the 6 houses a regular date window. It's kind of like the Datejust had a baby with the Daytona. We get a recessed minute track, and this, as well as the subdials, are finished in a rougher sandblasted texture, while the rest of the main dial is done in a sunburst finish. This watch also runs a Miyota 9000 series movement and sports a very Rolex-like Jubilee bracelet. It ends with the butterfly clasp, very elegant. The watch comes in 5 different colorways, and it's available for pre-order at the time of this video. I feel like if you've missed out on a SARB 033, for example, or you just want like neo-vintage 5-digit Datejust vibes, you really don't want to miss out on this one. I'm giving the Brooklyn a crunch score of 36. Okay guys, let's switch gears now and talk about this big, bold orange diver. But first, please take a second, drop a like for this video, subscribe if you haven't already. And I know some of you are gonna ask me, but I got this little holder from Amazon. It's like 20, 30 bucks. Just sits on my desk so I can throw a couple watches on there here and there. I'll put a link to it in the description below. The Photic diver is the opening salvo from British watch brand Clements. And what a job they've done. It's got a 39mm case and that classic skin diver proportions with a thin bezel lined with sapphire. This Nemo colorway sports a sun-drenched orange dial, and I love how the hands are done in glossy black to give a strong contrast, and it picks up on that black sapphire bezel. There are applied numerals at 12 and 6, looking nostalgic to dials that we're familiar with, but without being cliche. Tom Clements, the brand's founder, is clearly passionate about watches after inheriting his grandfather's Universal Genève at a young age. But the other thing he's really passionate about is the environment. And with every watch you buy, Clements will plant a tree to offset its carbon footprint. Well, I mean, Tom doesn't go and plant it himself. He pays a service called Future Forest Company to do it. But that's a cause we should all get behind, especially in a hobby that can sometimes feel too much like conspicuous consumption. The Photic diver looks big, partially because of how it proportionally divvies up space for the dial, but it actually wears quite well with a lug-to-lug of 47 and a superb depth of just 12mm. Can you guess the movement? Yes, again, it's the Miura 9000, and this time it's visible through a display caseback. It has 200 meters of water resistance through a screw-down crown, and that's where we get to my only critique. The crown, it's quite small for the style of the watch, and it has a step as it approaches the edge, making engaging with it sometimes a fingernail affair, which I just don't find very enjoyable. But that's the only negative I can find. I love this watch. Tom, please make more of these. He releases them in batches, so get on the website for the next drop. The Photic diver gets a solid 34.5 for its crunch score. So the watch that finishes up our collection is the automotive-inspired Voyager chronograph that comes out of Sweden, of all places. And if you live in Stockholm, you might see owner David Campo blasting around in his air-cooled 911, and that's like the 70s energy he breathed into this little chronograph. The watch also comes in a mechanical version on bracelet, but that would put us over our budget. For just over $300, I will happily settle for this quartz. The added benefit is that this version with the Seiko VK63 is actually a full 2mm thinner at 12.5, allowing this watch to rest beautifully on the wrist. It's 40mm wide with a lug-to-lug of 47, so it remains sporty but unobtrusive. And the fit is helped by twisted Laurier lugs, a la the Omega Speedmaster. The dial is a lot to take in, and its layout is best described as like a Zorro mask, with subdials framed in black across the 3 and the 9. The rest of the dial is done in white. Think the Breitling Top Time and the Tudor Heritage Chrono. A pop of orange is found in the stylized chrono hand with the Nezumi N as a counterweight. Everything is stylized, right down to the rocket-like hands on the subdials. This version comes with a vegetable tan leather strap that caps off that racing-inspired look. Nezumi also does special editions. Just check out this one they did with Ruff, the German Porsche tuner. As a car guy and someone who has owned a tuned Cayman S before, this just makes me quiver. Guys, what do you think about this quartet of watches for $2,000? I really think that at this price tier, you gotta look at microbrands to get the most fun, passion, value per dollar. But let me know what I've left out. Hit me up on watchcrunch.com. I'll put a link in the pinned comments below. Stay crunchy. I'll see you in the next one.